more which area will you be going into?
Oh, I can't tell. Obviously, it's up to PM to decide where I would end up. But you know that I've been active at Moment Kallang. I've been understudying Dr. Lee Boon Yang for some time. In fact, I was originally at Jalan Besar in 2008 when I was first with him. And I went off to get experience in other constituencies. And in the last month or so, I've been back to assist Jalan Besar and Dr. Lee.
Can you share with us who brought you into this political scene, or your first mentor was Dr. Lee Boon Yang, and was it him, and how has it been enriching for you?
I was first introduced into this by Minister Shanmugam. Right, he was the one who invited me to see the MPS sessions and invited me to see the insights of and how it worked. And my first experience was with Dr. Lee. I assisted him at Jalan Besar, and I worked with him on various grassroots organizations, activities, and I basically shadowed him in his work for some time.
Are you do you have any fear in the sense that you don't have any experience, not that much? So what is the challenges that you foresee and any fear that you have?
I wouldn't describe it as fear, but obviously it's new to me. You heard me say earlier that politically I'm inexperienced, and I only have the grassroots experience. But I have belief in what I can do, and I'm here because I've seen for myself over the last few years what it entails, and I know what kind of contributions need to be taken. Whilst not describing it as fear, I will say that I am concerned that I should take the effort to make sure that my residents' needs are met. You heard me say earlier that I want to earn their respect. I really mean it. I think that's something that has to be done. And without that respect and trust, I don't think I'll be able to effectively represent them.
Do you feel that easy for you to manage your professional commitments with the demands of political?
Sorry, can you just
It's tough. It's not easy because the demands of both, especially on time, are significant. But it's something that I've asked myself in the last few years when I've been shadowing Dr. Lee, and I feel that I can manage it. It takes a lot of planning, sometimes some degree of sacrifices, and unfortunately, my time with my family will be reduced. But it's something that I've taken on board, and I feel I can commit to.
Obviously, lawyers are a popular choice in terms of new candidates. What do you think you bring into the table in terms of being a leading legal mind?
Are lawyers popular choices?
So far.
Well, I think I bring to the table an analysis. I am trained to not accept answers without looking at the assumptions. I would like to look for alternatives. I don't think that I can rest without knowing that the options available, the suite of options have been looked at carefully. So that's what I bring to the table, and I believe I'm an effective communicator. I get to the grassroots organizations well, and I take to the residents well, and I think that would continue to serve me well.
You've talked a lot, mentioned about your desire to do more pro bono work and all that. Could you be a bit more specific as to what you've done in the past?
I work as a litigator, and from time to time we see clients who are not able to afford legal services. Sometimes they don't even know that they need legal services necessarily, and we try in those cases as far as possible to do it pro bono without charging them. I come from a firm where we have a dedicated pro bono department, and I do a lot of work for the pro bono department. Myself personally, I'm call it a volunteer or a member of the Legal Aid Bureau, so I get assigned cases from there. So I see that as a way of putting it back into society. Initially, until I got introduced to grassroots work, that was the kind of community work that I did. And I did that because I felt, as a professional, as a lawyer, that's the best way in which I can contribute effectively.
Obviously, we've had the proliferation of foreign law firms in Singapore, and it's something that the government has strongly supported. What do you think? How do you think that has impacted some of the local firms? And do you think the common man on the street still has access to the law?
Certainly, yes. In fact, I think the changes make it clear that the standard of legal practice has to be lifted. I think, as with any industry, we have banking, we have finance. We don't close it off to international competitors. So the same is happening for the legal industry, and I see it as something for the better. The market has far better options. Local firms now have to compete with our foreign competition, and I think that would augur well for the industry as a whole. And I don't see how that in any way detracts from having legal services accessible to the man in the street.
Can you tell us more about your family background and what your parents did, your siblings, things like that?
My family, you've heard me say a little bit about them. We are a very tight family. My parents are retired, my in-laws are retired, and they've now found a full-time second job, which is to look after my children. And they have been very supportive. I have 3 children, 3 girls, and they are aged between 5 to 10. And I see it as very important that they communicate and they speak to their grandparents, they learn from their grandparents, because certain core values are important. I mean, what you can't find in schools necessarily would be core values, and I think that's extremely important for children.
So you're an avid soccer fan, so which team do you support?
I like football very much. You heard me say that I supported Singapore when they went to the Malaysia Cup. So I am a keen football fan. I support Manchester United, and that has been something that I've been doing since 1976.
You've been talking about sports, about bonding the community closer together earlier. Can you share a little bit more about that?
Yes, I believe in that a lot, because I think in sports, especially in sports, you develop a passion. And there is a tremendous rapport amongst the people who support a particular team and who wrap itself around a Singaporean competing in an event. So I gave some examples earlier. I said, I'm sure all of you remember when we were chosen to host YOG. It was such a fantastic atmosphere. The same goes for when we were supporting Singapore at football games. And I think that is a kind of spirit, that's a kind of feeling that we should try and replicate more often, perhaps at the local community level. And then with that, we can try and replicate that at the national level.
On the national level, what are some of the pet issues that you think will be very close to your heart?
Where I'm serving now at Jalan Besar, I see a lot of low-income families. I mean, the proportion of rental flats that you see at Jalan Besar is significantly higher. The population in Jalan Besar is older. So we have that kind of problems. And I believe that we need to address them, because everyone knows that the cost of living has gone up. I mean, we've had the inflation rates go up. We've had Singapore Power recently announced that there have been some rate hikes as well. So I think that it is important to make sure that these people are not left behind. We have national measures. You've heard about the budget, and by and large, the budget ensures that the rising costs are more than taken care of. But in my experience, we always find that there are exceptions. I mean, there will be people who fall through the cracks. There will be people who don't qualify for public assistance. They don't necessarily get the full share of the workfare, and at the same time, they are facing increasing pressures on cost. So we try to help them on an ad hoc basis, and I think it's important to make sure that our policies, whilst they are national policies, when we apply them, we look at the specific needs of individuals.
Okay. What is your view, this is slightly off topic, what is your view on defamation suits and opposition politicians arguing that they don't have the same right of say as regular man on the street is?
I don't think that's correct. I'm a lawyer. We look at the laws very carefully. I think when it comes to what you term as political defamation cases, I think they really are no different from the usual defamation cases. When you have a platform and you use that platform, I think it's important to use it responsibly. I think a lot of damaging comments can be made if defamation laws are removed or not applied. So there must be an added responsibility. And that applies to everyone, whether you are campaigning politically or whether you are speaking generally. And you've seen many civil cases in the past 2 years or so where defamation laws have been applied and have been applied strongly and to the letter of the law. So it's not just in political defamation cases.
Last question for me. Was there a particular moment when you realized that you wanted to get into politics? You knew for sure this is what I want to do?
Well, there isn't a, genie moment, if that's what you're saying. But I think over time, in the last few years, I've seen the process. I've been heartened by the way residents and people walk away from these sessions with something in their pocket, with a solution to their problem. I find that there is a platform on which we can contribute in a greater way. And more importantly, I think with that realization, I then also needed to graft that with the support of my family. And once I had that, I realized that it's something that I could do. And it was a gradual process. Learning because it's something new to me. And also to my family, who had to make adjustments so that I can move along this path.
Yeah, on a more personal note, you mentioned about one of your probably regrets is that you didn't learn Chinese well. Can you share a little bit more about that? Would that consider the biggest regrets so far?
I suppose you could say that, because I think in today's, as I said, today's economy, in today's industries, and also my own, the command of the Chinese language is important. We cannot lose sight of that. And I think it is very useful, a very useful communication tool to have. And yes, I do regret that I didn't pay more attention to my Chinese teachers and I wasn't playing around when we had Chinese lessons then. But that said, I think it is also important that we cannot let second language alone cause our better students to be disgruntled with the system and drop out of the system. Because then I think it'll be a waste and a real shame. So we have to balance it out.
Just to ask, do you know any dialect? Do you speak any?
I'm Cantonese, so I can speak Cantonese. I grew up listening to my mother and my grandmother watching Cantonese serial, so I know that. I'm not sure I can repeat that kind of language here, but yes, I know Cantonese.
You can speak a little Chinese or not at all?
I can speak a little Chinese.
Okay, and Cantonese.
And Cantonese.
Okay.
Can I ask recently?
Can you give us your handphone number?
Yeah, we can do that later, perhaps, after we finish.
Yeah, so after Tim Pei Ling was unveiled on Monday and she received all this online flack,
Yeah.
How would you deal with it if you were in her situation?
It's really unfortunate because I think, the social media is so powerful. You upload something now, it becomes viral very quickly when people click on it or like it and so on. So I think there is a need for people to use it responsibly. And I'm not sure I agree with the way some of the comments about Ms. Tin has been used, about the photographs that has been dredged up. That said, I think in today's new media platforms, I think one has to be very careful with whatever is said. You've heard Dr. Ng say earlier that the past is all out there. I think it's par for the course nowadays. As to what I would do about it, well, I think I would largely ignore it, because I think one has to have conviction in what you're doing. One has to carry a degree of faith in what you want to try and achieve. And I don't think you should let, or at least people who are affected by it, should let that detract them from your objectives.
How do you separate your personal and private lives on the internet then? Considering that it's so pervasive and everybody wants to know what you're doing, where you are.
I think you do it with some degree of caution. As I said, I hope that people will use it responsibly. People who want to see, make friends and online and so on, I hope they use the information responsibly. But if not, then I think it's upon each and every one of us to make sure that we, look after it. And I think you've got to be careful not to put your own closest, deeper secrets onto the website, and anybody can access it later on.
Will you create separate accounts then for your political campaigning?
Would I do that? I'm not sure. I haven't done that. So I have the same account, and I don't think I will do that, because then I suppose logistically I'll have to move everything around. So I'll just be more careful. I think one has to be very circumspect about what you post.